Whatever tunes your knees to mush, they hit the lift. Even if you gotta sift through the shit to get to the twist, the smile I high like it's your very last line. Can never get another try. Do it loud, do it for the loud, for the here and now.
Hello, everyone. I was recently able to meet up with Robert Leiterman and Rowdy Kelley, two members of the Bluff Creek Project, and I'm sure everyone knows about that. And they were at the Willow Creek Museum this past Sunday, and I was able to patch in with them on a Zoom meeting, and we had an interesting discussion about their project out there. There were a few technical difficulties, and we had to work through those, but here is the interview.
You see me?
I see you, Robert.
Oh, good. Yeah, we're just finishing up with our booth section here. Rowdy's right over here.
Hey, Rowdy. Well, you want to give it a few more minutes?
Yeah, give us about one more minute.
Okay.
There. You can almost see my face.
Tell them how hot it is.
Yeah, it's 105.
105 today here.
Man, do you guys even have a fan on?
We do. We have a fan. They just left. Oh, you mean one of those fan blowers? Yeah, we have one way over there.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for giving me the space and time to talk to you guys. I've got to be honest with you. I didn't, since I'm from Kansas City and my encounter happened in Oklahoma. I haven't, even though I've traveled up to the Pacific Northwest quite a few times, I'm not that knowledgeable of everything over there. So here's the honesty part. I've heard y'all's names before, but I didn't know until this week when I started watching your videos and trying to educate myself before this interview just how important what you guys have done and how intensive everything that you guys are involved in out there. I'm kind of blown away that I'm so ignorant of what you guys have accomplished. And so first and foremost, I'd like to thank you for all the effort that you put into that because certainly a pilgrimage out there is on everybody's bucket list, and you guys have made it to where it's accessible, where before 2003 it was not. So take us back to 2003, where, matter of fact, it was there at Willow Creek where there was the international conference going on there that people couldn't agree on the location. That's really the catalyst that got this started, isn't it?
Yeah.
You were there.
Yeah, I'll start with that. Yeah, that we're sitting at the Bigfoot Museum right behind us. This is our special wing. They allowed us access for today. It probably once a month now. We'll probably try to come by and just answer people's questions and do things. So that's why we're here today. Just happy that Rowdy and I were able to cross our paths and be here to present it. But just down this road, just past behind the camera I'm pointing, that goes up to the elementary school. That's where it was in 2003. Friday, I went there in 2003, and Friday, I was with the BFRO. I was with Matt Moneymaker's BFRO. I was an honorary member of the group. I'd go out and lead expeditions and stuff. So I got a chance to show up for this. So I was kind of excited. So I got in. I got a free a press pass that I don't know how Matt Moneymaker got all these press passes. The press was probably upset, but we got them all. So we got in there, and I was sitting at the very top of the stadium, and there's this guy, Christopher Murphy. You probably never heard of him, but he was sitting up there. He had a big old. No, seriously, Christopher Murphy, he's a well-known Bigfoot guy from Canada. He's got a lot of work. Anyhow, so before he did this book, we have it right here. This is what we use, our Bible, a lot. So we did our research. You see it's well-loved, kind of beat the snot. But yeah.
Meet the Sasquatch.
Yeah, Meet the Sasquatch, his first book. So he had it in binders and laminated. I got to chat with him up at the top, and this is 2003. And he was talking about all the Bigfoot stuff. I didn't know that was Christopher Murphy. I didn't know that was going to be his book out in a year, but it was kind of cool. All my job is just to entertain people for the salmon dinner at lunch. And that's where I got involved. But I had to go back to work since I work for a living. I had to go back to work. And that Sunday was on the big, as Stephen Stroifer likes to call it, the mass confusion day. So you can imagine the field trip on Sunday where people load up into their convoys, their vans, whatever. They get up there, they drive down the dirt road. It was before the berm was in. They got down to what's called the Peter Burn location, or where the bat boxes were. They get out, they look around, they go, okay, let's go to the film site. You can imagine them all going, it's over here. So it was a big confusion. And that's the mass confusion day. I wasn't there for that, but that's the story Steven shares with me. But if you talk to some of the players, nobody was so sure, because over time it had changed. It was difficult to get there. But yeah, that was 2003.
So that was
Wow.
Steven's catalyst.
Well,
Yes.
Steven's catalyst to be, well, where is this film site? All these Bigfoot experts are saying it's at different locations. So I think
well,
that
yeah.
was
You would think that that would be first and paramount, and first get the location secured. That way, all questions can be answered from that point on. But to think it's in 4 or 5 different locations, I mean, yeah, just think of the confusion. I got a question for you, Rowdy. Is Rowdy the name on your birth certificate?
it was for 4 days.
Really?
Rowdy James, I won't say my last name, but yes, my grandmother came down after 4 days after being married and was very upset that my parents legally named me Rowdy. So they
Wow.
moved it to my nickname, and it was my first name. And yeah, you can write me a check with Rowdy. It's
Well,
fine.
that is fantastic. I was trying to find a humorous way to ask that, and I was like,
Well,
were
there's an old. You're old
you,
enough, remember the old show Rawhide?
yeah.
Clint Eastwood plays Rowdy Yates. Both my parents were cowboys at the time. So
Wow.
in 1967, that was the show. And yeah, my mom loved Clint Eastwood. So did all the nurses. So that was my name.
Well, that is a very historical and romantic way to say that that's the name that you were given. I thought maybe it was because you were a colicky baby.
No, it's hard to live up to the adjective Rowdy for me. I'm a pretty calm guy. I've done it once or twice, but not too often.
Well, I looked at your background, and I looked at your stuff, and I'm very impressed. Just the trajectory that you have made through the commercialism and all the things that you learned, and down in Los Angeles, and then you came up and to become a part of this. Man, I am stoked
I'm actually from Humboldt County. Now my work history, yes, I've been working in Hollywood productions, commercials, all that for a little over 25 years now. And that's how I fell into this group, actually, was through the production of Birth of a Legend, Finding Bigfoot, their first 2-hour special, which was the end of their first season. I'd been working on a movie called Bigfoot, the Lost Coast Tapes. And I was already acquainted with Bobo. I brought Bobo in as a security guard for our remote location, and he was going to help with the guy that was going to play a Bigfoot in this movie, kind of give him the walk and give him the generality. And he had already filmed 2 episodes of Finding Bigfoot. About a month and a half later, I get the call, because I do locations, I produce, that Finding Bigfoot's coming to town, and I needed to be a part of it. I was going to be their local producer, which we call a fixer. Anyway, I already knew Robert, and I knew Robert was the I'm gonna put you like this. Big out. And we can go this way. Okay.
Yeah, well, let's explain to them. Let me get my chair.
I'll scoot over. Here.
Oh. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. You're probably not going to believe this, but it's 105 and our phone overheated. So we have it in the ice chest right now.
brilliant. That is
Our
brilliant.
phone's in the ice chest right now.
Now, I would have never thought of that, but Rowdy is the technical guy. He's like a talker. He goes, "You got an ice chest, right?"
When it comes to Robert Leiterman, before you guys came together, you said you knew Robert at that point, but I need to go back. Robert was a park ranger at the Humboldt Redwood State Park. Is that correct?
Yeah, Humboldt Redwood State Park, third largest state park in the California system. Yeah,
Okay.
I was a
Now,
ranger there.
from what I understand, and you guys put out some brilliant videos. I hope everybody goes to your website and starts looking at some of this stuff for the information. But I watched all of the things that happened, and I'm sure my subscribers want to hear that also. What you had happen at the park. But I want to go back to I think what me being in the fire service, I know how my day started at the fire service where we'd go in. You have certain things that you would do. There's a hierarchy, there's a chain of command, and all those things. I'm assuming that the park system is exactly the same way. And when you go in the first day, do you know what you're going to do from day to day, or do they give you freedom and flexibility to where you can just say, "Hey, I'm going to go clear trails between these two campsites," or do you have every day where you have to check in and they say, "Here's what you're going to do today"?
Well, that depends on what type of relationship you have with your supervisor. If you go in the office and tell your supervisor what you're planning that day, he says you have a good day. Just make sure you do this. If you don't tell your supervisor what you're doing, he has a list for you to do. I figured that out pretty quick, but some of my fellow rangers took them a long time, which is okay. That means they got to do those other jobs. Well, I got to do I'll be driving around checking certain things. And one of the fun things was backcountry patrol, driving around, checking, making signs are up, checking on campers in the backcountry, seeing a bunch of weird stuff. That's the fun part of that aspect of it.
So
But
if I understand correctly, you actually had a program at your park there where you got to talk to people about Bigfoot, but in a fun way, and where it wasn't anything about real Bigfoot encounters. It's like that. You just kind of put it out there as a fun talk for kids and things. Is that correct?
yeah, actually, it's amazing what you can do as a park ranger. Depends on where you work. But one of the jobs, when people ask me, I go, park rangers do three things. They protect the people from the people, and that's your law enforcement. They protect the people from the park, and that's pretty much keeping them when they get lost. And then the park from the people when they go out and just destroy everything. So those are some of the three basic things. One of those is interpretation. Is we're responsible for educating the public. So we're also interpreters. We're resource managers. We're seasonal overseers. So we have a lot of jobs. And one of those is interpretation. So we put together these campfire programs where you light the fire, grand opening, you sing a song, you tell a story. Then you have a presentation. Sometimes this might be storytelling, or one of mine I liked is I had a bunch of tabloid magazines and I talk about the tabloid magazines on Bigfoot, of course. And those are breaking the ice introductions. And then you went through and you had a slide presentation. So I would tell the stories of what I learned through the slides. And that was nice. Is like I started doing that in about 1998. And about 1999, I got involved with the BFRO. That's a whole story in itself. But I got involved because it was a sighting. It took place in the park, and I followed up investigation on it. And then I guess they dangled the red pill in front of me, and I took it. And then I became part of the BFRO, doing interviews and getting involved with
Investigating.
investigative reports, and also helping with the expedition, leading expeditions. And that's one of the ones where I met Rowdy. Not really, I met him before that. I think the big story about Rowdy he likes to tell, I'll tell it anyway, is he was riding his bike with a bunch of other guys on the trails that were designated as bike trails, and that's where we first met. I forgot all about that till Rowdy brought it up the other day. You know when we first met?
We weren't on our bikes at the time, but yes, we had our bikes with us.
Yeah.
And then Robert literally walked out of a tree. He was just walking down a trail, but it looked like he walked out of a tree because he came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's like the cloaking devices. You know, one of the ways Bigfoot gets around is they have these little time cloaking little portals they go through. Rangers got a whole network, and we just go all over the place with those things.
But
Oh,
yes, I knew Robert as the Bigfoot Ranger. So when I got the call to do Finding Bigfoot, I contacted Robert. I'm like, Robert, I'm gonna do this Bigfoot show. I know you're the Bigfoot Ranger. Tell me what I need to do. And he's like, well, coincidentally, we have a BFRO expedition in the Bluff Creek region the week before my initial scout was going to happen with a producer. So I was like, well, let me go with you guys. So I got to be his guest at a BFRO expedition, and we were based out of Fish Lake. And he was going to go walk the bridge, the Bluff Creek Bridge, from which is in between Louse Camp and the film site. They're going to walk from the bridge up to the film site, wherever that may be.
About 3 miles ish.
Yeah, a little over 3 miles. And so I wanted to be a part of that. So actually, our producer had showed up for that, and we were waiting at the other end for Robert and his crew to walk up. And Steven Struford was there. Robert and Steven both drug me in, looking at a Bigfoot book. The Christopher Murphy, Meet the Bigfoot, Meet the Sasquatch, I should say, book. And I started looking at that, and they're like, yeah, would you be interested in working with our project on rediscovering the film site and verifying it? And at first, I didn't see the importance of the film site as far as it being what's needed to verify Bigfoot. I didn't think that was important at the time. Through the course of, we're talking to other people about that. Through the course of the years, I've definitely seen the importance of the film site, and that it is the only tangible evidence that we do have. We have a chemical reaction on cellulose. We have a location. We verified the location. Whatever that creature is in that film, it's not a digital representation. It's not a fake, in the sense that it did put that imprint on that film. So whether it is a costume or it is real, that's yet to be decided. And to me, if it is a costume, I think that's even better story than if it's a real Bigfoot. Because those guys did a hell of a job.
Well, Robert was showing a book by Mr. Murphy, but do you have a copy of your book, Robert, that you can show the cover of here? Robert,
yeah, I have about 12 of them. Which would you like to see?
Well,
yeah, 12 of them. Which one would you like to see?
The latest one.
Ladies and gentlemen, Robert authored his own book about this subject. You need to get. I actually wish I had a copy right now, because I'm getting ready to take a trip up there to Washington, and I may come down there into the Bluff Creek area. I need to have that at my campsite throughout my whole course of going across Washington, so that I can read it and educate myself on it before I get down there. But I'm going to order it. I just don't think I'm going to get it in time. But everybody, you're going to want to read this book. So I can't wait to get a copy of it, even if it's after my return. So there you have it. And that book was put together because of this project. And can you go back, Robert, please, to the sighting that you investigated within your own park system? And didn't that cause a little tiff between you and your supervisors?
It did. Here, let me quote from the book. No, I'm just kidding about that part. Yeah, it was Labor Day weekend. Let me back up a little bit. Well, no, I have to start with Labor Day weekend. I've been giving an interpretive program about Bigfoot, tongue-in-cheek, a little bit of humor, resorting to facts, not giving an opinion, because when you're wearing a uniform, you have an opinion. Everybody assumes it's your agency opinion. So no opinions were agencies. So I was just tongue-in-cheek entertainment. And then this guy shows up, John Freitas, who I had met to this point. Great guy. He's a good friend. I've known him for a long time, but he was my first BFRO contact, Bigfoot Research Organization contact. So he went over to one of their offices, knocked on the door, and asked to see, talk to one of the rangers, because he was looking for a location where he can broadcast alleged Bigfoot calls from a ship speaker attached to the back of his pickup truck. And actually, in the museum right here, that original BFRO speaker is in this place. It sits on the shelf there. That's the one. Yeah. And so I says, no, you can't do this, because we're talking about, he shows up with a group, and this is Labor Day weekend. There's 3 busy times in a park. It's Memorial Day weekend. It's 4th of July and Labor Day weekend. And he wants a Labor Day weekend. And we have this bird called the marble murrelet, and another one called the spotted owl. And during the nesting time periods, there's ordinances that don't allow you to make excessive noise. I don't know how it works in a campground, because there's always excessive noise, as you know. But anyhow, so I says, no, you can't do it. So I gave him an address a long ways away, miles away, so it wouldn't be a problem for the public. But that was my first exposure. But the reason that he was there, he said they were following up on a report that a person on August 22nd of 1999. It's amazing I remember that. 22nd or 23rd. His dad was walking a trail near Burlington Campground. It's called the River Trail. It's the other side of South Fork of the Hill. And he had son's shoe was untied, so he told told the son, tie your shoe. So while he was doing that, dad was standing there and he happened to look up the slope and he saw what he described as a naked, hairy upper torso walking back and forth between a couple of trees and then stopping and then scratched his back on what was appeared to be a stump. And that's when he freaked out. It was walking on two legs. It looked like a human being, but it was super hairy. So he went back and complained asked the park staff if there were any bears. And of course, the park staff says, oh, of course, there's no bears here. These aren't the drones you're looking for. There's no bears here. And so he left, and then he reported it to BFRO. And then Freitas got a hold of it because he was a Californian, and he was investigating these reports. Therefore, he shows up with a crew at BFRO. They get there Labor Day weekend. They do what they do. They inform me. And then I don't get to go up and investigate it until September 22nd or whatever. So I take one of my park aides who's really good at tracking, and we go, let's go find it based on this photograph. Because I forgot to mention that the BFRO website was advertising this sighting at the park. And he sent it to me, and I looked at it and I read it, and they were kind of not quite right. So I went up and investigated it and made it right. Now, I did it in uniform, but not as a park ranger writing a crime report, but just out of curiosity because things slow up a little bit. And I got somebody with skills, like, let's go find this place. And we did. So went up the hillside, and sure enough, at this time of year in August, the redwood trees start dropping a lot of their needles onto the ground, the fronds. And so the trails get covered by those. But you could tell that there was a trail there, and it came down and it went past this burned out redwood stump that was now had algae growing on it, moss, and there was not a single scratch on it because I scratched it and I took off a lot of the black. So therefore, the report said it had scratches back on the stump, and it did not. So then I started looking around. So I found a cigarette butt. I found a strap to a camera. Then I found this little spur trail went around the stump and went over to about a grove of these three little redwood trees, are about that much diameter at the base, not too big. One of those was the bark was soft and it was pushed down and rubbed like something scraped it from about a foot off the ground till about 6 feet up, which could match something rubbing its back. So of course, I took measurements, I took photographs, but my partner didn't want to be photographed, so I had her photograph me. So I'm wearing my Stetsons, my shirt sleeves. I'm standing just like this, standing in front of this tree, right? It has scratch marks on it, and I'm pointing with my little fingers. And so I put this into a little report, and I sent it to BFRO. Dear Mr. BFRO, Mr. Matt Moneymaker, you guys had misinformation. So I sent that to them, and then he calls me back pretty quick, and he says, hey, how would you like to be a curator for the BFRO? I go, what's a curator? I didn't know what that word meant. I was like, what's a curator? Well, follow up on reports, answer questions, help other people. I said, sure. So I signed up, and then I became a member of the BFRO. I became a curator, and this was 1999 in the fall. And since then, I've been pretty much involved heavily in the Bigfoot stuff. But so I gave it to Matt Moneymaker. What do you think he did with that? He posted it on the BFRO site. And now he has a member of the BFRO who's credible, right? Just because I'm wearing a uniform, I must be credible. And so I get a complaint passed down to me from one supervisor up towards Patrick's Point, down towards Humboldt Redwood supervisor, my supervisor. So then I receive a cease and desist order. Cease and desist. I felt like I was deceased after that. A cease and desist order. I can no longer use state time to do any research or do anything related to Bigfoot. Now, here's the guy who's been using state internet to research, to provide information for the public, who's been blessed to do so, who's been giving campfires about Bigfoot for 2 years now. It's a program that a lot of people sign up for and attend, well received. And now I've been told I can't do any more research of it, can't talk out or anything about it. So that was like, great. And so that's being punished for talking about Bigfoot, right? And I didn't expect that source in uniform to be used as a tool, you know, and say, oh, look, here's an expert now at the subject who's just some ranger guy who has an interest in the subject. Anyhow, so I got a cease and desist, and then I got to sit down at the supervisor's desk. And then he got to see the article for the first time, and there's nothing incriminating, all factual information. So then I was off at the cease and desist. I can do what I wanted to do. And this is how the state operates. 9 months later, Real Scary Stories, I think it's called. It's like kids looking for scary places. I get asked to be interviewed for that show. And so they go up the chain of command. So now I have a piece of paper from my department says I can talk to these people now, but I can only answer the following questions. And so I drive it all the way up to Crescent City area in my nice, beautiful, washed pickup truck. It's white, nice little store on the door. I'm in my Stetson. I'm wearing a beautiful uniform. I'm clean. I even showered. I show up and I get interviewed with the sun setting behind me. And they asked me every question that wasn't on that list, so I couldn't answer a single one. I said, I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I can't answer that. Didn't they send you a list? Well, we don't got a list. So I made the cutting room floor, and the other gentleman who had a cast had hair fibers in it. The sun was setting over his shoulder, glowing. The white cast was glowing in the setting sun with orange, just like it did off the door of my patrol car. Now I was doing it for him. And he's deceased now. He's not around, but he got his 15 minutes. We're talking about the cast, and I got the cutting room floor. And that's been the hit and miss as it kind of goes along with the ranger stuff. But yeah, I've learned to just share nothing but the facts, answer people's questions, because like if you give a presentation and you talk to people, whether they like it or not, you know, they show up for your program, but you always have these people after your program look over their shoulders and they tell you the stories or they ask you questions. And that's the best part of giving those presentations, was talking to the people afterwards, because now they're sharing stories or now they want to know more about a subject matter. So because of all this, I got coined, as Roddy mentioned, the Bigfoot Ranger. So I hope that's enough to get you kind of how I got suckered in.
That's a lot to chew on, and it's too bad that all of that work, what I gathered from that, you ended up on the cutting room floor. It's too bad you had to shower for that.
I know.
but yeah,
I'm sure the interviewers appreciated it.
Yeah, somebody did.
yeah. No, this is just fascinating, and you know, I'd like to get down to where you guys, the work that you did on the site about clearing lanes and doing the grid work and all that stuff. Can we jump to that, because people don't understand how things change over time, and we're talking about a 50-year change here, and clearly there's no way you would be able to just waltz back in there and say, oh yeah, here's the spot, because of the change that takes place over the landscape.
Yeah, I'll start out and I'll pass it to Rowdy on that one. When I was the videographer for Stephen and Ian Carton, they were walking around aimlessly lost, and I was filming them talking about, we can't see anything, we can't find stumps, we can't find logs, we can't find anything, it's overgrown. I think it is the tree. I think this is the tree. Oh no, it's more downstream. No, it's got to be upstream. And then when Ian had family episodes, he had to go. I brought Rowdy on, and so Rowdy shows up he didn't know what he was getting into. He can talk about that, but that was the hardest day. It was all day, and we picked our location and we had to grid it. And it was so overgrown with forest. We had to do north-south axis, cut them into squares, draw on the artifacts. Once we did that, got the artifacts all drawn in position, then we had to transfer it over to a map to make it work. But I'll let Rowdy continue on that one.
Yeah, so they brought me in, like I was alluding to earlier. We were talking about the BFRO expedition the week before we started officially shooting Finding Bigfoot, The Birth of a Legend. So Stephen and Robert presented me with that book, and I noticed some things in the frame by frame progression of Patty that I attributed to a hackle rise that you see in an animal. And the initial frames of Patty she doesn't have a hackle rise until she looks back, and the 352 pose is really when she's looking back to see Gimlin crossing the river. So she's feeling this approach of these two individuals coming towards her. I noticed that the hackle rise soon after that, as people say, is the zipper in the back. To me, that is a hackle from a agitated or stressed out animal, which you get, the hair on the back of your neck rise. Same thing with the dog. So that kind of sucked me in enough to say, yeah, this might be an important thing to check out. I had been there during the show. We went down to the Patterson Gimlin film site, but we really didn't know where it was. Bobo and Cliff walked up to it, and we had to get our whole production team up there with Bob Gimlin. It ended up making our day later. And as we walked into the site, and Bob said, yeah, this is the place. I looked at it and I said, there's no way this is the place. It didn't look anything like what I'd seen on the Patterson Gimlin film, which I'd probably seen dozens and dozens of times by then, just trying to familiarize myself with the film and the show itself. But Stephen and Robert were, I think it was 2 months later, month and a half.
Yeah, that was it was July, and then we went back up in September.
September, yeah.
Yeah.
September, I went down with them, and we kind of said, this is probably the site. Bob kind of corroborated, and Bobo and Cliff thought that was the site. And so we went to the site, and we started our grid plot, and we started it. I was on the smart end,
Yeah.
so to say. We had to get our north-south bearing. We did our north-south line all the way across. And we kind of started where Bob said Roger started filming. So I kind of made that our starting point. We did a compass bearing all the way across to what you see in the background trees, which is the big tree in the background. That turned out to be from his initial sighting all the way to the back of that small creek valley there is 382 feet. Something you don't really get a comprehension of when you're looking at it. So 382 feet over a football field length that we were going through. And this is at the time 45 years after the fact. So it's a creek bottom that is growing slowly, but it was growing at this point with trees with lots of lower branches. So we could only see in certain spots 10 to 15 feet in front of us at most. So we're just looking through branches, and we're trying to keep our north-south line straight. As we come to the back of what you see in the film site, which would be all the way back here, which is in the background of 352, these are all the trees there. I noticed a combination of trees that looked like the film site, which is the big tree. And then there's actually a maple and a vine maple, and then another big tree. What's the second big tree called? The second big tree.
The middle tree.
The middle tree. Okay. But I noticed that combination. And when you look in the original 352 frame, you'll see that the maple tree grows and it has a little bend in it, just a little bend in it about 10 feet up. And I knew that trees grow from the top up. So that bend would be in the same spot. As soon as I saw the big tree and I saw the maple of what it would be 45 years later with the same bend right in the same spot, that's when it really hit me that, yes, this is the film site for sure. And what we did that day is we spent a long time doing a north-south grid. We took halfway point of that, gridded across that way, and then made quadrants of 30 feet square. And by the end of the day, Mr. Energizer Bunny's keeping us going. Stephen and I are getting tired. Robert's like, we got to do all the well, you did it the next day too.
Yeah.
We went through each one of those grid marks and we did a catalog of what was in each one of these grids. And we got all the old stumps, debris piles, trees, and we matched it up with a 71 to Hendon picture overview that's looking down.
Yeah, we drew them in,
He drew in what we knew was there.
and then we updated them again, added more stuff.
More stuff. Robert did all this work, drawing work. Anyway, these ended up matching up with De Hendon's overview. How many? 36, 32?
We ran out the letter of alphabets.
Well, how many different things matched up? As far as the debris piles, the stumps, everything matched up. And that's when we actually brought Jamie Wayne in, and Jamie did he he did basically the trigonometry to say these match up with what we found, because this is an off angle, kind of shooting down from the hill. I think DeHenden was up on the hill that I believe, Grover Krantz, Titmus followed the trail, and he said what he followed with Patty's path, that she went up on this hill and was like looking down on these guys. I think that's kind of where DeHenden is on this shot, that looking down. Yeah. Anyway, through all the trees and all the undergrowth, we matched up all of this stuff to the original film. So all these stumps that were in 71, first stumps, they last. They don't deteriorate like the alders did from the 64 flood, which wiped out most of the alders that were in that creek bed. But the first stumps, fir logs, they last. They take much longer to deteriorate. They're called a medium wood. They're not a soft wood. So that was really our finalizing thing, that all of these things matched up in precisely the right positions with DeHenden's shot. So I helped out with that day, got involved when we brought, in 2012, we brought the Bigfoot experts down, Bill Munns, Bobo, Daniel Perez, Cliff Barackman, whole gamut of guys came down.
17 of us.
17 of us, and we all went down. We took Bill Munns there. He wanted to do his research and doing measurements. He started us off on pulling the measurements from DeHenden's measurements of where Roger was standing. We kind of did a rudimentary position of where he was at, but we were still dealing with a lot of branches and undergrowth. And over the years, what you're alluding to is over the years, every year we continue to branch up and limb up trees to improve our view shed and improve our walkability of the site. Because to take somebody there in 2012, hey, this is the film site, they would have trouble visualizing it or even understanding that it was the same place. Nowadays, we have a little more openness to it. You can see the background trees closer and closer to Patterson's filming site. We have a little platform set up kind of where Roger was set up for the 352 section, which is the famous section where he was stabilized. So over the years, we've just improved the visibility and the ability for people to get there, as far as keeping the trail up, making sure they know the directions on how to get to the berm, and just general safety stuff. It is very deep in the woods. Make sure you have good tires and a very good spare, because you don't need 4x4 really to get there, but you do need tires. Every year somebody gets a flat, whether it's people visiting the site or part of our camp out that we have every year, the weekend after the 4th of July. If anybody wants to come, hasn't been to the film site, wants to go to the film site with the Bluff Creek Project crew, will be our 14th year next year. The weekend after 4th of July, up to 20 people have been part of that group. And we have a good time for about a week. Some people say for 2 weeks. But we make several excursions to the film site and give you a personalized tour of it.
So I'd like to remind everybody the pictures and the grid work that Robert has been holding throughout Rowdy talking here, that can all be found in his book. So I'm going to encourage anyone who is watching this, you got to get this book. This might end up being your Bible of Bluff Creek books that you're going to have.
Our ice is melting. Yes, it's and this is not a Bigfoot book. This is not a Bigfoot investigation book. This is a factual film site, and that's the importance of what the film is. We have a physical thing that happened. We had a chemical reaction on cellulose of some kind of creature in this film, and we know the exact location. So over the course of our going on 11, 12 years now, 13 years now.
Yeah, it's
13.
2009.
13 years now, we're getting more and more out of the film site, getting all the facts that we can get out of the film site. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's the only factual thing that we have right now. Excuse me.
if when you guys were on site for the first time looking for it, you found a couple of trees that you thought looked like it could be the trees in the film, uh, could you have gridded the whole thing out on one item found, or uh, did do you have to have multiple items that match in order to be precise?
Well, you're increasing your probabilities when you have multiple things. If you were just basing it on those three trees, I imagine if you gave us, 10 years, we might find a three tree combination that was close. Probably not with the crook and the combination of the big tree, the vine maple, the big leaf maple, and the middle tree. We probably wouldn't have found any other place like that. We could have based it on that, but Robert, being very thorough, thought we should take it further than that, and that was part of why we did the grid plot, to make sure we had 32 to 36 more things that corroborate that this was the film site.
Well,
So
that is fantastic.
verification and probability is probably why we kept going. Yes.
Well, that is fantastic. And you were talking about that maple that had that little crook where it
Yeah.
went off into one direction. And I'd like to explain to the layman, and there's going to be a lot of people who don't understand even how a tree grows. But often on a farm, you'll see a tree where a fence has been run alongside, and the tree grows sideways and encapsulates the fence row that goes alongside of it. So the growth of a tree is all at the ends of the tree. So the height
tops.
and the outer parts of the branches are the parts that grow out, but the trunk
Yeah.
itself just stays in the same spot and grows bigger.
Yeah, so if you have a branch at a certain height on the tree, it's always going to be there. That knot will always be there where that branch was when it initially started. So yes, it grows from the top up.
Most of our education, like myself, most of my education came from cartoons, and so I just would see a tree grow straight
Yeah.
up and keep growing up and take stuff with it. So that's the extent of my education of how a
Jack
tree
and the
grows.
beanstalk. Yeah, right.
You're
Yeah.
right.
Which is kind of nice because this is 352. It's more the actual frame size in the movie. You see the outside perimeters
Of
on
the film. Yeah.
of the film,
Of
and
the frame. Yeah.
and then Rodney could point to where the maple tree kind of is. And
Yeah, the maple tree is, okay, here's our big tree. This is probably a leftover alder, but right here is our maple tree, and you can see it has more of a yellow, because this is October, supposedly October 20th. So our maple is starting to yellow. As you look down here, this is a vine maple. It turns a little more red, and it's got a smaller leaf as compared to the maple. But right about there, there's just a little bend in that tree. It's about 10 feet up. It just changes direction slightly, which I call a little crook. And it's amplified now. It's still there. The tree itself is, 58 years. Well, from that position right there, 58 years. It's a really big maple tree down there.
Okay, so if anybody was to go and use your book as a guide to get them to that spot, Louse Creek or Louse campsite, that is the basis to where everyone would go camp, and then from there they would hike into the camp to the film site.
Well, Louse Camp and the film site are approximately 4 miles upstream from each other, downstream, upstream, about that. Yeah.
yeah,
3.5, 3.2 from the bridge. So
Yeah.
another mile.
yeah, well, yeah, it's a mile and a half from the campsite at Louse to the 12 and 13 bridge.
Yeah, so you're talking from Louse Camp to the film sites almost 5 miles. So
Wow.
most people don't camp at Louse and then hike all the way up. What we do is we camp at Louse. Louse is literally the heart of Bluff Creek. You have to commit to get into Louse. It's one of the deepest parts of Bluff Creek as far as being right in the middle of the whole drainage. Beautiful spot, good place to go swimming. They do have a pit toilet. They have campsites, but it's a very remote spot. But typically what we do is you camp at Louse, you go back up 12 and 13, and you take a spur called 12 and 13H, 12N 13H. And that's the spur that takes you down to what we call the berm now. The berm is above the film site, literally right above the film site, but you got about a mile and just maybe under a quarter hike down an old decommissioned logging road that took you down to the creek, which in 2003, they used to be able to drive all the way down that creek. Due to a landslide that's happening there, they cut that road off with a berm. Now you have to hike down it. So from Louse Camp to get over to the film site, it's probably 20-minute drive, something like that.
Well, maybe a little, well, yeah, about that.
Yeah, about 20.
It's 4 miles of dirt road, but with rocks on it, you have to drive a little slower. And it's a grade all the way uphill to the top. And then when you get up to that, it was called the 12 and 13, call it cell camp because
We get cell service up there. So
Not-
right
not
where
this
12 and
week.
13 are, and right where the spur is, there's a big pullout. And some people do like to camp there because they do have cell service.
or big vehicles.
But it's up on a ridge. You don't have any water. You have to be pretty self-sufficient up there. But like this year on our Bluff Creek Project camp out, we had several people at the cell site. We had several people at Louse. We'd all have dinner together sometimes. And then those people at the cell site, when we'd come up and go down to the film site, we'd pass them, hang out with them. They'd go with us down to the film site. So it's not a commitment. It's not a half-day commitment. If you want to go to the film site, you need to commit the whole day. If you're coming from out of town, you need to plan on camping out there or camping someplace close. You're not going to make it from Eureka out to the film site and back. You could do it, but you're not going to spend that much time at the film site.
Yeah, we've done that several times. Like Ian and Jamie and I to go check the cameras back in the day when he was still living in the area. It'd be an all-day trip. We'd get up and drive all the way there, go just check the cameras, do a couple things, and then get back and the sun's going down. That's the whole day. And it was a job. It was a chore. Rowdy here still checks the cameras a lot. He keeps them updated, pulls the cards on, reviews it.
Yeah, so that's another thing that was started with us is the Bluff Creek Camera Project. I won't go into the history of how we started that, but we caught some bears early on over in the Onion Lake area. And Jamie said that would be a good idea. Let's get these cameras going at the film site. Because as most people don't know, the Bluff Creek drainage is closed from the end of October till usually Memorial weekends. They're trying to mitigate a Port Orford fungus disease for the cedars that are in the area. So they close all the gates that allow you access into the Bluff Creek drainage, which is very big. So we have cameras going since 2012, 13 years now, 24 hours a day at the film site and usually a few different locations around the Bluff Creek region. We're open source. We have not gotten any video, obviously, of a Bigfoot. We've gotten hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos of bears. We've got hundreds of videos of bears standing on their back legs, scratching their backs. We've got ambiguous pictures of bears right up in the camera that could be a Bigfoot if you were in that kind of group. But we have the before and after pictures. We know that they're bear. But in 2012, we did get some creatures running around at the film site that we didn't know what they were. There was some kind of weasel. Jamie, I think, presented it to a wildlife biologist
At HSU?
at HSU,
Fishing wells.
and he identified it as a thought to be extinct Humboldt martin, which is a subspecies of the pine marten. The last known pictures of the Humboldt martin were 1992. And our videos, the first year that we had these up, we adjusted our cameras down to a lower position, and we started getting dozens of pictures of a breeding pair of Humboldt martins, which led to them being put onto the endangered species list. And there's been other people getting video of them at different sites, so they're on the rebound. But we did find something cryptid that nobody had a picture of since 1992, and they're
What a
still
great
there. I
side
just
note.
Yeah.
I just looked at videos, and they're still working there at the site.
And the nice thing I want to add to that is the fall and the winter of 2012 is when Rod and I installed a lot of those cameras, and Jamie was with us when we did it. We covered what's called the Rocky Plug area. It's a low beach area where it kind of brackets and narrows before it widens up again. And so we put the cameras there. In 2007, I was with a friend of mine. We were riding our bikes up and down there, and we were having a lunch break, and this little weasel animal come running towards us. I believe it's where we were until we got to like 10 feet away. It saw us and screamed and ran off. I didn't know it was a Humboldt Martin, but that's not too far from where this our first Humboldt Martin documentation was. It was cool. We put it up on an angle and it covered this beach, and lo and behold, this brownish looking weasel like things scampering across it.
So that's one of the lures of Bluff Creek right now is it is closed to the public from October all the way to June. So those animals are all out there, non affected by humans coming in. So our game camera project got better with the advent of lithium batteries, which last a whole year, whereas our old copper tops wouldn't quite last through the winter and the cold. So we would get incomplete data through the whole year. But now our cameras are running year round, 24 hours a day, 365. So yep.
Wow, that is
Which
great.
is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
We don't.
what
I was going
what
to
a
say
great side benefit. Yeah, documenting the Martin there, and yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we believe in documented research. That's not what supposed to do. Groups are supposed to do. So we try to document the best we can. And the interesting thing is, we used to hide our cameras, but the vegetation and snow would push it in. We couldn't get to them, so we lost all the shots. So now our cameras are in metal cages, so the bears don't eat them. They just beat them up a little bit, scratch their backs on them, pee on them. But
Well, a lot of our cameras have been there so long; they're part of the environment there. You know, until I touch them that once a year, they don't get touched by people usually. So a lot of the bears don't pay attention to them. Foxes, deer do notice the IR when it kicks on. You'll see them look over at it. We found ringtails. We didn't know ringtails were out there. But what we're doing basically is documenting what is out there. You know, what did you hear in the woods? You know, a lot of times people hear stuff in the woods at night. They hear walking. We're in the highest concentration of black bear in America is right here in Northern California in this section. So a lot of it's bear activity. Most of it's bear activity.
One time we got a Rowdy capture when he stuck to the footage, a three-legged bear with the tag.
Yeah.
So if I come out there, do you guys have signage up along the trail to help direct people where they're going?
They do at various places along the trail. We do. We have a fairly well-defined trail that leads you to a creek crossing. Once you get across the creek, we do have another sign that kind of points the way around to the film site. Once you get to the film site, we don't have much documentation there. You will see our platform, and you'll see some rock structures that we put up to make us a table so we can do a little bit of work. But we really don't have any signage at the film site. We like to keep that as clear as possible. We've had some vandalism on some of our signs.
Shooting signs, taking signs.
Yeah, stuff like that. But in general, we do have to put some new signs up every few years.
Or put the old ones back up again because I don't know if the squirrels throw them down or what, but somehow something pulls them back out of the tree and we have to put them back up.
Yeah.
Hey, Rowdy, if you don't mind talking about the platform we put together under your leadership.
Yeah.
Try to duplicate the.
Yeah. What we needed was where Roger filmed the bank. He was kneeled down, is what I understand, and he was filming. But that bank is on the shore of the creek, and that is eroded away. So his filming position is eroded away out into empty space. So what we did is we utilized a bunch of down trees and branches and just utilized the wood that was there. And we made a platform to get us up to that level of where his filming position was again.
Well, that's certainly important for measurements. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw this up, try to interrupt, but
Yep.
In the photography world, to determine the height of something, if you have the lens and the type of lens used, the size, and the distance, you can estimate the height. So there's been some controversy as to what lens was on the camera. And talk about that, Rowdy.
Yeah, we've done 2 recreations so far, and there's speculation that it was a 25 millimeter, but there was also a 20 millimeter that was available and a 15 millimeter. So he had a single turret K100, which means it had a fixed lens on it. You couldn't change it to other lenses. And there's no determination exactly of what lens size he was used. It took me 2 years to find a 20 millimeter because we had a 25 already. So we've done 2 recreations with the 20, 25, and a 15. We're very certain it's not the 15. It's too wide. We're just kind of stuck between the 20 and the 25. And hopefully this October, we have enough vegetation cleared that we can get more framage as far as what we see in 352 and verify from Roger's known position which of those lenses was used. And to me, it felt like it was the 20, but towards the end of our last recreation, it could be the 25 if we move back just a little bit. And this is the camera that he used, and it was a single lens camera. Daniel Perez has a similar camera. I have a similar camera, but it's a turreted one that has 3 lenses that you can rotate through. But this year we have a higher sensitivity film roll. We have a 500T color Kodak 16 millimeter film that we'll use this year for probably our final recreation. And what we do is we just try to recreate those approximate 10 seconds that run through 352 where Roger is in a fixed position and as he pans just a little bit following the creature.
So will
but
there
so
be a
far,
so
go for
so will there be a Bluff Creek Project Part 2 book?
That's a good question.
That's a possibility. Perez might be writing that.
Yeah, he might be writing that. As far as we know, he's already written it. He's just waiting for the information to insert it.
Yeah, right.
And so going back to if people go to the film site, there's a sign in a watertight container.
Down
Please-
the bottle.
Yeah, please put the lid back on before rainy seasons, just minor things like that. And also there's a platform there that it was Rowdy's idea to reconstruct the level of the sandbar to continue on because there's a certain distance we need to adhere to figure out the height thing. So that's an ongoing project. It's not just show up and film. It's try to get the same level that the upper sandbar was, because Roger was 5'3".
Yeah.
So that affects a lot of the different heights you might look at.
So in our assertion of all these different artifacts that are in here, we have some foreground artifacts and we have background artifacts, and they're still there. So when we line up certain things that line up with the background, we can get the right height of where the film was as far as where the camera was, so we can get exactly how high that is. Now, I've taken a LiDAR team down there on a certain TV show. I won't say what it is, but we did a LiDAR of the whole film site. And according to that LiDAR specialist and the computer animation that they did, they came up with Patty being only about 6'3", which is kind of goes along with, it does go along with what Bob Gimlin initially said and told us on Finding Bigfoot. And a few times I've talked to him that what he saw was only about 6.5 feet tall, but 450 pounds. So the LiDAR survey that we did kind of corroborated that, no, this wasn't an overly tall individual. It was well within human proportions. But size-wise might be a different story as far as density.
Wow. Well,
So
that's very interesting.
Those when Roddy mentioned those artifacts close to where Roger would have been while he was filming, you see some of them on here. Maybe Roddy could explain a little bit more.
So this log is not there anymore. Somebody salvage logged that sometime probably in the late 70s. But we do have debris piles here, and we have a famous smiley face, which when you look at 352, her hand is kind of pointing to it. And like I said, you don't realize from his filming position all the way to the back, that's a football field length, if not more. So when we have these foreground positioning, we can line up how high we should be to get this filming position. This is not his frame. This is whose frame is that?
I can't remember.
Is that Green?
That might be Green
Yeah,
Sun.
that's Green's son there.
Yeah.
So yeah, all the stuff that you were alluding to earlier, we could have stopped on those 3 things, those 3 trees. But when we categorized all of these things, they're adding to the facts and to information that's going to lead us to more information on the film, having these artifacts and still being there in the foreground and in the background of the subject.
Very good.
Yeah. The more information you have that match, the better the results are going to be. And even making notes of distances from stumps to where Roger's position was, because Renee DeHinden did it, John Green did it. They probably would have been off a foot, if my memory serves me correctly, about a foot between the two of them. And when they measure using triangulation, that's how you determine location. So,
and we're riding on their backs. These guys that made these measurements, and Munns is riding on their backs too, because luckily these guys were coherent enough to know that those things were important to get known artifacts that aren't going to move and take measurements to where they thought, or it's known where Roger filmed and where the subject walked. Because we have a really good idea of where 352 was, exactly where she was standing. And that's part of the fun of going to the film site with us. We can put you in that position and put you in the pose and take a picture of you in the famous 352 pose in the 352 spot.
within 5 yards. Money back guarantee within 5 yards.
I'd say 5 feet, but yeah.
Well, see, that's why I made it 5 yards. So I gave myself extra, a lot of extra
Doesn't-
room there.
Doesn't get any better than that to have a money back guarantee. Well, I want to tell you guys, it's been wonderful getting to know you guys on a personal level, where before I only saw you guys and was gathering what information I could from videos. I am going to be up there in Pocatello on the 13th, and then from that point on, I'm going to go through Walla Walla area on up into the Colville area. Well, it was at this time that I lost them for the last time on a technical glitch. Apparently, the battery had run down on the iPhone that they were using. And so I continued to talk, but it was coming to an end anyways. But what I was doing at this point is I was just asking them that, since I was on my way up there in a couple of days and making my way across Washington and maybe down through Oregon, I would like to make a trip to Bluff Creek. And I was asking them if they could assist me, maybe meet me there and guide me to the site. So what I did was we just answered those questions via messenger after this technical glitch, and Robert Leiterman did say to let him know when I would be there and he would meet me. So I look forward to that if we can make that happen. And I certainly will be filming my own footage in all of the locations that I'm going to be researching at for the next month. And hopefully I can end up at the Bluff Creek area before I head home, because it's on my bucket list. Thank you.
For the